G'day fans and welcome back to yet another exciting episode of DNA Reviews where we get into the most fabulous topic in the entire universe, me. No, so the other topic, the fantastic topic in the universe, Aaron. No, there's another topic on top of that which is even better. Docky Who. Mr. Aaron, how excited are you about the latest episode that came out a couple of days ago?
I actually thought the most exciting topic was the Sydney Sweeney Barbarella movie, but I'm very excited about the latest episode of Doctor Who. We're going to have to dive into this pretty fast because I've made so many slides and have so much to discuss. This is going to blow out to be a bonus length episode if we don't all talk fast.
Well, I tell you what, it's like Aaron's waistline. It is practically bulging at the seams, right? The buttons are barely able to contain it. So it is going to be absolutely fantastic. Got all these people joining us already, including Carol, who's joined us all the way from Ballarat, which is absolutely fantastic. And the usual regulars, which is a very, very cool. Yes, Lux with lanolin. Yes, exactly right, which is very, very cool. And another exciting topic, that's a Star Wars show, which I found out when I watched last week's episode of Docky Who. I was trying to work out who's the actress, where's she from, and of course she played Cinta in Andor, which is cool.
Andor.
But we're here to talk about the old Docky Who, and of course it is the episode with one of the shortest titles in the history of the universe, Lux, which I think is particularly cool. And before we move any further, of course, there will be spoilers for those who haven't seen the episode yet, and I'm sure everybody has, Mr. Aaron. So what are your thoughts before we kick it all off about the good old Lux?
This episode is so good and so influential. KFC have already released the Lux meal, and I think I should eat a lot of them just to honour their respect for this Doctor Who episode. What do you think about that?
See, if you get the French version, it's the deluxe version. I don't know. Just had to think quickly there for a joke. I like what Russell said here. Welcome to the Dags Falls Asleep for an Hour show. Yes, exactly right. Feel free to take over and push the buttons, old son. I'll just stay here and be quiet. But you are right. There's a lot to talk about regarding this. Now, for those who haven't seen this before, how our format works, we have what they would call the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we look at the good parts of the episode. The bad parts and the ugly parts are actually areas where we discuss thoughts, theories, conspiracy views, and other discussions. So it's not ugly per se. But the good thing is, Mr. Aaron, we're going to kick it off with the good. And before we do that, is there anything you wanted to say before that occurs?
Yeah, to William, we're broadcasting for someone else too. Goodbye.
There we go. Yes, exactly right. Yes, I like that. Watching someone else buy. What was the point of that? Comes in to tell us he's not sticking around. It's your loss, old son. So just for clarity, Aaron's probably watched this episode 600,000 times. I've only watched it once, and we have not discussed, even though I know what he thinks, we have not discussed our respective opinions. So it'll be interesting to see what comes up. And of course, we're going to kick it off with some goods. Got to start with the positives. And is the very start of the episode, Mr. Aaron. What do you think of all this?
I think the episode started off amazingly well. I think we've talked about the pre-title teasers before, and some have been average and some have been great. This one has so much good stuff happening in it. There's almost a full show of goods in just the pre-title teasers, but I think it did a great job of setting up atmosphere with the old, the sort of old Pathé newsreel stuff on the atomic bomb and things like that, which was kind of a red herring because it didn't really go anywhere. And often when they do this, it ties back into the story. And it sets up the location really well, and it sets up the atmosphere because it's sort of the Twilight cinema as well. So as this show has a lot to do with light and the effects of light and things like that, I thought it was a great way to open.
Yeah, look, it actually worked for me because it was something that was a bit unexpected. I like the idea of the atom bomb thing because typically it's a bit like Godzilla movies. Whenever they talk about the atom bomb, you go, oh, clearly Godzilla is made from nuclear energy. And all things being equal, it actually had nothing to do with nuclear energy at all. So that was a nice little, I was like, oh, we think it's about that, but it's actually not. But I agree. Everybody sitting in the cinema watching everything that's actually occurring on screen was actually very well done. And just a quick hi to good old Glennis, who's joining us from YouTube, which is particularly cool. Of course, it's all well and good to be in a cinema, but of course you need someone in the projection booth. And you got this sequence, Mr. Aaron.
And again, this is straight on from the last slide where what I really loved about this, it actually shows the science of cinema. And one of the things I think that people have forgotten, you used to have to get a degree to be a projectionist.
Yeah.
It actually used to have to be something you go to university. And this shows you sort of the care and also the complexity of being up in the booth and doing this back in the old days. I love particularly how it shows the graphite rods, which probably most people don't remember anymore,
Mm.
which adjust the light. And there used to be a big complaint in cinemas to save the graphite. They would not put them as close together so it wouldn't burn out as fast, and you'd get, like a faded looking image. I thought it was really great because it showed the process of this and how everything's run to time and different things are showing, and it shows the archive of films that a cinema would have. People don't realize with digital now, when things are just downloaded, that back in the old days, there might only be 3 prints of Empire Strikes Back in Victoria. So only 3 cinemas in a chain could be showing it. And that's why movies used to be in the cinema for so much longer, because a popular movie would be rented by different cinemas for years and years and years. So seeing the cinema has this archive of old movies, it works, because even though the this episode's set in the 50s, the cartoon is obviously a 30s or 40s style cartoon, and you've got a projectionist, much like a DJ, that probably can choose the programming each day from what they've got in the archive. So it's a little slice of history as well as an introduction to Doctor Who.
I tend to agree with you, especially when you do see all the work of threading the film through the reels and getting all the lighting ready and hitting the switch to cut over the projectors. For a lot of younger people, they're thinking, "Oh my God, that is just like, what is that?" Whereas, as you said, for a cinema for over 100 years, that was just considered the norm. But I agree with you. I actually thought that was actually quite good as a nice little build up to what was going on. Here's an interesting thought, though. Russell has said, if it's in the US, like it's meant to be in Florida, they wouldn't have actually used Gaumont Pathé newsreels. It would be Universal Movie Tone News or March of Time. That's an interesting observation there, because I actually thought this was set in England until they come out and go, "Oh, we're in Florida." And I go, "Oh, okay." So that's, what do you think about that, Mr. Aaron? You reckon that might have been a bit of a balls up on the producer's part?
I don't actually think they showed what studio it was the newsreels were from, did they? I think it just came up, Atomic Age. So
it could be the voice, because it was an English accent, though, if I recall. But no, that's okay. Yeah,
that's true. Russell might have picked that up, but I didn't. I saw the company that made the cartoon is listed on there, because I did look to see if it was a Fleischner cartoon or something like that, and it wasn't, but it was just a homage to it kind of thing. But we'll look at that later.
cool. And David has also joined us from YouTube. So the making of talks about the effort the actor playing the projectionist went right down to having dirty hands from the oil. Very cool. It's those little details that make all the difference. And if they've gone to all that trouble, then yes, that is definitely a good on many, many levels. And you are right, Christy. Most people wouldn't pick up on it, but as soon as one person does, it was worth all the effort. But of course, the key thing about the story is they put on the cartoon the ring-a-ding-ding-ding-ding-a-ling-a-ling thing, whatever it's called. And this dude pops up, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, well, the first thing I wanted to talk about, and we're going to talk about Mr. Ring-a-Ding quite a bit today, is it was obviously a homage to so many different cartoons. The style is right back to Looney Tunes and the early Disney stuff, different studios. It is probably a little bit earlier than the 50s, but like I said, this studio is one that has a vault with different movies and things in, so they can go back, and probably the cartoons are pretty timeless, which is why this one comes up. But I do love how they went to a lot of effort, particularly in the direction of the characters, how it is presented like a cartoon from that era would be presented until it becomes a living entity, and then it actually starts giving different shots that you probably wouldn't notice unless you were like someone into old cartoons. But when it was just the cartoon that was playing, it was very stilted, and the horizon and everything was middle, and sort of you'd get the setup you would in a cartoon. But then when it became the entity, then it actually changed the look of the cartoon as well, which I think is quite clever, because even the audience watching it noticeably sort of go, "What's going on?" even before it starts talking to them, because the look of the cartoon became different from what it was when it's just playing an old cartoon.
Two things. So Sean has joined us and said has a Steamboat Willie feel, which is, I agree. And if you look at the eyes of the girl, that to me is very Betty Boop like. So I don't know if that's
Yeah.
been inspired by that, but just looking at her, I thought, okay, you always take away the locks and change some of the features, and you could end up with Betty Boop. But I agree. Yes, you can, and it would be common here, and it would have been common a long time ago, saying, well, it's 1980 something, but we'll show cartoons from the 60s. So yes, it would make sense that the cartoon is actually from a completely different era. And then, of course, Lux discovers that he's got himself a little bit of a personality, and it all starts to change, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, so I think how they played this episode was really clever. We've got to remember as well, and we'll talk about this going through, the character that came out was, I guess, a combination of the entity god that it was and the cartoon creation that it inhabited. The bad guy isn't per se Mr. Ringading. That's just a cartoon character that exists in this sort of universe. The fact that the god inhabited this character and turned it into an avatar for, I guess, itself is an interesting concept. But I got to say, I couldn't fault the special effects. One of the things I always notice when they show cinemas in movies or TV shows particular, it always looks like it's got, 4 rows of film. 4 rows of chairs. You can always tell it's filmed for TV because it's just a set. This did look like a big screen, and it did look like the cinema was a full-size, smaller cinema, had like the curtains and everything. It looked majestic. So when this happened, I did think it looked great. I think it was one of the better openings for any Doctor Who series ever.
Yeah, I mean, they must have, as you said, used a real cinema rather than building one, and certainly didn't fake it. And that gave it a lot of depth and a lot of character. And with the Lux thing himself, when he starts coming out of the screen, I have heard of a film that's been released recently where they've actually added in black bars to the top and bottom of the frame intentionally, so they can have characters that go beyond the bars to give the impression, even in the cinema, that it's actually breaking out of the cinema screen, which I think is actually very clever. So it just reminded me of this, or reminded me of that when I saw this, which I thought was particularly cool. And this, of course, is a good example of that, where he's coming out and terrorizing everybody.
Yeah, so everyone in the cinema sort of, realizes this is not a good thing when he starts coming out and talking to the audience. And again, one of the best transitions from the live action to the opening titles of a Doctor Who episode is it goes to the cinema projection booth, goes into the light, and then it pulls out, and the light is the light on the top of the TARDIS, and it goes into the opening. I thought that was a particularly good opening, fade into the opening credits, probably the best from this era.
Yeah, I thought I knew it was going to happen because the projection light is so bright, and I thought this is where the credits are going to kick in. But it really is starting off with oh my gosh, what's going to happen now? Edge of the seat stuff. And then that's when the credits roll. It's like, that is actually a very, very, very clever way of doing it. So it really was a case of, all right, we're not sure what the next thing is and how, when the Docky eventually turns up, which of course he does with a Belinda, how they're going to fix it. So it was, very, very good way of kicking things off.
Well, this is, I gave this another good because it's been a while since 2 Doctor Who stories that weren't a two-parter just joined into each other. Like with Ruby and the Doctor, it seemed there might have been some time between their adventures. This, they're still in the costumes from the last episode. They're still trying to get the TARDIS to work. There's no break between it. And I think that adds some urgency to the story and him trying to get her home. And we haven't, after one episode, swept it all under the carpet. And now she's traveling with the Doctor, having a fantastic time. So I think she's a good character in that she has a bit of depth, that she isn't, one story with the Doctor and now she doesn't want to go home and time travel. They're straight into her going, I want to go home, you've got to fix this kind of thing.
Well, it's still stuck with the original problem that May 24th, 2025, Earth is kind of a bit up the shit. So that's when he says, we're going to go back, and we've ended up in 1952. And of course, she has a bit of a flip out over that. So what the freaking hell are we doing in 1952? So she is the voice of the audience. And later on, when she meets Lux, going through all this technical detail that most people in the audience would be saying, well, how does that work? That wouldn't work here. That wouldn't work there. So she's definitely the voice of the viewers, which I think actually really, really works. But yeah, talk about having a side off travel. Oh, it's supposed to be in 2025 and now we're in 1952, which I just realized is the flip, which, very, very clever.
And then we get something that we couldn't get last season when they should have done it, and that was like it was Roll Over Beethoven. It wasn't the Beatles version, but they did it. We're going to talk about this later with some information that Russell sent me, but they've still got the clothes on from the last episode, and it's almost a repeat of what he does with Ruby on her first adventure. He's like, okay, this is the fun bit, the clothes. And maybe this improves the Doctor for me, because one of the things I've discussed about this version of the Doctor. He hasn't really settled down into anything yet, and every single episode he's in different clothes, so you can't really pin his look. But if his attitude is he's a clothes whore and he loves changing clothes, and like that's one of the best things about his adventures, that he gets to blend in with different times and wear different things, maybe that explains why he hasn't settled down to one look yet, because he is a bit of a person that loves different clothes. They also did the thing that I think is really cool. When the TARDIS jukebox comes on, the rondels in the wall, like, change color to the music. So that's a consistent thing they've had the last couple of times they've played music in the TARDIS. So they get points for that as well.
Yeah, one thing I don't know about the previous millions of seasons prior to Doctor Who, whatever time zone they ended up in, the Doctor always wore the same outfit, didn't they? They never changed their clothing to match the period they're in. So I guess in this instance, they're saying, well, we can't go dressed as we are. And Belinda says she's still in her sleeping clothes. So at least they've tackled that and say, well, you can't just walk out and don't expect not to be noticed by the locals, because you will stand out. So I guess from a detail perspective, and as you said, it occurred in the previous season as well, that's at least a tick in the box. They're at least trying to blend in with the local population rather than just standing out. So, and of course, the end result looks pretty groovy.
Yeah, and that's the good for this is this episode looked absolutely beautiful. I was trying to work out, was it a set or was it built, and it was actually a location. It's a pier in Cardiff, I think, and they redressed it to look American. And what I really liked about it, you have the sort of the grimy look of realism now. It actually looked like almost the American graffiti ideal 50s America, with the big American cars and the neon lights and the cinemas and stuff. And I've got to say, the Doctor and Belinda both look great. By dressing for the period, they really fit into the environment. And I think if you were time travelers, that's probably what you would try to do.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think it's intentional. They make everything that, like, give that utopian feel, because when you first look at it, you go, are they in a real place, or is this like a simulation? Because it just looks too clean and too nice and too pretty. But I agree with you. When you walked out, you go, oh, this is very, very spunky to look at. So, yeah, I like it. And then, of course, we discover afterwards that there's some darkness, some bad stuff's actually occurred in the cinema across the road, which, of course, brings up this particular bit.
And again, I'm impressed that they kind of didn't forget that she wants to go home, and she has to give in with the Doctor's sort of, mystery about, they really do pull the Scooby-Doo thing where it's the cinema plays movies all night and it's locked up and it's got a creepy old janitor. So it's like a haunted cinema. And she is torn between well, I really don't want to be investigating stuff in another time. I want to go home. And they do actually do what they need to do when they get there. They get the data for the equipment so they can triangulate how to get back to the 2025. And the Doctor is kind of bursting to look into this. And I do think if you've dressed up and you've come out, you're probably not going to go, okay, that's enough of the 50s for me, and leave again. So I do like that the motivations were in place and they kind of like went through the process of why this is happening rather than it just happening.
Well, I mean, the key thing is that, of course, when they turn up, there's no one in the street. Now, had it been a completely different scenario and the street was full of people, maybe it was all white people, and there was, because they've got the segregation thing going on, maybe it would have ended badly. But it is that whole thing. It is the Scooby-Doo thing. Oh, here's a mystery right here. Let's go and find out what's going on. But Belinda could have just said, nah, stuff it. I want to go home. You're dicking me around, son. Let's get back in and bugger off. But clearly for this episode, that was never going to happen. So, but I guess curiosity does, it's like, you can't help yourself. And if there are movies playing in the cinema at night and the place is all locked up, that is definitely very intriguing. I think most people would be keen to say, what was going on with that? So, so you can understand the curiosity factor kicks in. So, very, very cool.
Tegan would not have been impressed because she would moan through 2 of the 4 episodes about the Doctor not being able to get her home. I think it's strikes a better balance of, I really want to go home, but hey, this is an interesting situation, so we'll investigate it, rather than the companion like Tegan going, why aren't I home? Let's get back to the top for half the story.
And of course, by the end of the episode, she's like, mate, adventures, let's just go completely burko. So home, nah, bugger that. So
Now, one of the things that, for better or for worse, this era has put a lot of agendas in that people find important in society these days. I won't go into that. I do think sometimes Doctor Who is sprinkled with too much of the issues of today that I would rather just be enjoying a science fiction program. But I think they got this right, where they actually go to an era where the Doctor and Belinda would have an issue because of their colour, and they bring it up, but it's not really crowbarred into the story. They're talking about it because the situation comes up with what they're doing is illegal because of segregation. And the Doctor explains it, and Belinda says, "What can we do to stop this?" And he's like, "We can't, because sometimes you just have to wait for society to change." So it's a nice comment, on how things have improved, rather than taking something like last week and saying we're turning everything into the planet of the incels. So this is the kind of message that they want to put into stories done right, and I have no issue with it at all.
I tend to agree with you. When it is first brought up in the episode and they say, "Oh, we're not really meant to be here," and of course you don't realise why until he
Yeah,
mentions it, and I go, "Oh, of course, yes." But I found it interesting. He says that includes her, but doesn't mention himself at the same time. I thought, "Oh, okay." So doesn't he see himself as to what skin color he currently is? But he automatically
yeah,
thinks, "Oh, yeah, she's definitely the one who's going to get into trouble." But I thought it was very well done, very clever, because you do forget about what 1950s was like in the US.
yeah,
And I tend to agree with you. I thought, well, because if you had have ignored it, someone would be saying, "Well, hang on, there was this problem in the US throughout this period. You can't pretend it didn't happen, because it did happen." So, and the fact that just the people in the cafe were prepared to say, "Let's not worry about it for now," I thought it was actually very well done. Yeah,
yeah.
very good. And I can't pronounce the name, but we've got Clara. G'day, Clara. It's saying Hola. Is it Hola? Is it? Okay, very, very cool. So,
Hola,
good stuff. What?
hola.
Hold up. There you go. Very groovy. So we're sticking with the goods, by the way. So for those who are just joining us, we'll go through the goods, we've got the bads, and we've got some discussions later on. So away we go, Mr. Aaron.
So again, this one was a bit of a twist where Mr. Ringerding was introduced as one of the pantheons of the gods. And the callback for that was part of his catchphrase, "Don't make me laugh." And the Doctor, of course, doesn't even realize this at first, but after he repeats it a couple of times, the Doctor is, "Well, why? Why don't we make you laugh?" And when he laughs, it's, of course, the giggle from the Celestial Toy Makers episode. And in some ways, this was more in tone of how I wanted the Celestial Toy Maker episode, the giggle, to be than it actually was. I thought this was done right. It had the right tone for something which is, got a animation as the main character in a show that really doesn't do that ever. I thought they pretty much nailed it. And the thing with cartoons, because it's two-dimensional, and you can have the expressions being over exaggerated to show mood and feeling. Mr. Ringerding was able to convey stuff in a way with live action actors that sometimes actors can't do, because it would be overacting in the way that they do things. So I thought the dynamic was quite good. We've come a long way from Anchors Away with Tom and Jerry dancing, with people, to this, where it really did look that they were interacting with a character on set.
Yeah, I automatically thought of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And this is what I said earlier. The Doctor automatically realizes there's something unusual going on, whilst Belinda is too busy trying to work out the technical details. Oh, the hologram, how's it interacting, blah, 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 which is, I thought, was very clever, because the audience would be thinking that as well, which is particularly cool. Clara's joined us again. Just said she did enjoy the musical references in Lux, which I thought you brought up earlier, which is very, very groovy. So yeah, the bad dude turns up. And I agree. I think the camera does a big circle around everybody,
Yeah.
and of course the orientation works out really, really well. So yes, it was definitely very well done for sure. And that, of course, led us into this bit, Mr. Aaron.
Well, this is one of those things where often you get like the secondary characters that aren't fleshed out. And you could very easily have had the projectionist, who a couple of people have said to me today actually looks like our friend Dags. I don't see it, but there you go. But they actually give a good reason why the projectionist is helping him. Also, he's a good person. He is trying to keep him trapped in the light and keep him in the cinema. He's trying to protect the audience, but he also has a good motivation as to why he can't like just let the whole thing go, because obviously there is a film of his ex-wife who's, or not his ex-wife, but his wife who's passed away. And I did like how they portrayed it, where it's a very old-fashioned movie and then it translates to him dancing with someone who's in black and white, because it's a black and white movie. And then as she spins round from the screen, she turns into color. And his answer is, if he is real, she is real, so I can't leave, kind of thing. And I actually thought, okay, that's actually a good motivation for a change. They've actually really thought this one out for character motivations and why things are happening. So I give that one an up as well.
Yeah, I actually like the idea of the black and white turning into color with the woman. I thought that was a very nice touch. And as me looking like the projectionist, I can project a lot of things, but film is not one of them. So I can project funny humor, but of course, no one ever laughs at that. Now, this I thought when this popped up, what? Go on.
I was going to say, I often think I'm a rejectionist.
Oh, well, there you go. Now, when this popped up, I thought, oh, Aaron's going to be losing his load over this because they're showing bad dudes from all over the place.
I know, and this is another one of those things where the Doctor works out that he is from the pantheon of the gods. And what is interesting about this, when we had the Harbinger live in the list of the gods, she did list all the bad ones, and Lux Imperius, or Imperius, whatever they called it, was not listed with them. And I did think maybe this is not going to be a bad or evil god. And one of the issues I do have, and we'll talk about it later, maybe his motivations weren't exactly clear as to what he was actually doing. But I did like how he mentioned the previous episodes. It fit into the continuity well. And then he reasoned that, you know, he was the one who should go up against the Doctor. So maybe that's why they left him, the Doctor, for him, kind of thing. But I always like nods to the past. And that was just a nice little flashback sequence.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned Ank was away earlier. We had a variation of that. Our own cast members put into the cartoons, dude.
Yeah, I really liked how he called the projections "my lovely ladies," and they were quite, you know, I guess for something that's an inanimate object, given that they could shoot out the film and use it to enshrine and drag them around and pin them up and stuff. Like, if it wasn't in such a light show, that's very Evil Dead type thing right there, with the vines and stuff and moving people around. Now, I really loved the animated sequence, and we'll talk about some of the downs about it later, but the main down for me is it didn't go on for long enough, because I think they could have done so much more. I loved the word play. I loved the breaking of the fourth wall. They broke the fourth wall two to three levels of it, because they broke it within the show where it was talking to the audience, and then they broke it again within the actual episode where it's talking to us, the audience, as well. So it's quite clever how it's written. And I do like how characters are 2D because they don't have any depth, and they play on the word depth with emotional depth and gravitas, and they inject like I guess drama and melodrama into their characters, and by doing that they get their 3 dimensions back. And you know, I've seen, you know, shows which go into cartoons before, but I don't think maybe any of them have been quite so well written as this.
Very cool. Now, I'm just going to move straight on to the next bit, because this is the bit that intrigued me the most, actually, is how they got out of the sequence by breaking the frames there, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty amazing too, because they're characters who are from the actual world and they've been put in a cinema film and they know they're in a film. They're able to rationalize that, well, we can stop the frame and break the frame. And what I did really like was they thought this was a good idea. They stopped and broke the frame and thought they were out. And then again, the Doctor is actually smart enough this time to work out that they were still in the film, because the characters were different. And you know what I liked? I liked, for a change, that the Doctor worked out that they were in the film because the characters weren't nice enough. And he remembered, you know, they weren't, you know, as severe as they were being to him here. And then he could deduce from the officer's uniform that it wasn't quite right and the continuity was wrong. So they do a second breaking of a frame. And, you know, again, there are some movies that play with the whole meta breaking of the fourth wall. This is, you know, I'm a Doctor Who fan, but I think this did it one of the best ones I've ever seen, of playing with film within film.
Yeah, you get presented with a problem and you go, okay, our heroes have become animated characters. How are they going to get out of this? And the idea of breaking the frame, now that would have been really arduous for the actors to keep doing the up and down, up and down, up and down. And the way it was edited, because it flickered really, really quickly and then tried to sort of slow down, if I recall. I actually thought that was quite good. Now, did you get sucked in by the police officer and the lady turning the tables and like holding them up at gunpoint? Did you think, oh my goodness, now they're in a real pickle? Or did you
Yeah.
realize something was up?
No, no, I actually did think that they had got out, and then I was just thinking, oh, typical, we're getting
Hmm.
people a racist type thing. But we were suckered in. The doctor works it out really fast, and I do think it's nice that the doctor works it out because he's like, hey, people are nicer than this, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, go on, go on.
Yeah, and was able to work it out that way. So I thought it was a really well played sequence. And in this episode, nothing outstayed its welcome. They'd have a really good idea and they'd execute it, and then it'd move on to another one really fast. That's why we've got so many images to play with this week.
Yeah, I did like the fact because, like with Belinda, she's obviously packing bricks a bit, and the doctor clearly wasn't. And go, he knows something's going on, and it was like, I wonder how many people, even in America, said he's wearing the wrong uniform. It's a New York police officer's uniform, not a Florida one. That
Yeah,
was very clever because yeah, it did look like the tables have been turned. I was like, oh, how are they going to get out of this? But yeah, and once again, as you said, the doctor is meant to be the smartest person in the room, and in this case, he was. So
yeah.
they kept his character true to form, which is cool. Then all of a sudden, there's a sequence that involves people. I'm not going to say us because it wasn't me, but it's definitely people like you, Mr. Aaron. The nerds popped up.
Well, when they did the thing and it zoomed into the white screen and the doctor took the glass screen off the TV, I turned to Tennille and said, if they come out of the TV into our room, this is the greatest episode of Doctor Who ever. Turns out they did that. It just wasn't my house. It was someone else's house who was watching the episode. Now, this could have been where Doctor Who really went down the gurgler and jumped the shark, or whatever sort of term you want to use for taking it one step too far. But in the context of this episode, I really enjoyed it. If it had gone on a bit longer, it might have, outstayed its welcome. And there's some stuff in this which I thought was really incredibly well written and well done. It mocked Russell T Davies himself. It mocked some of the other writers. It mocked fans, but I don't think it mocked fans in a bad way. I'm used to watching shows where when they mock fans, they say, how sad and stupid they are. It happens a lot on comedy shows where we're easy targets sometimes. This, I think, shows fandom as the strange creatures we are, but doesn't actually mock us by putting us down. So I thought this was actually a good representation of fandom. And like any collector, the first time I watched it, I wasn't actually really watching the fans. I was trying to work out what they had on the shelves behind them and what their collection was. And I don't think they're very good fans because they had nothing rare at all.
I think the other lady who's not in that shot has a Grogu shirt, but they had to modify it for probably copyright reasons. So it's like it had fangs or something on it. So I don't know if there's a picture of
No,
this
it
coming
was
up. No, there isn't. What was it?
it was the Meep from a Doctor Who episode.
Oh, is that why they had the word meep on it? Oh, because
Yeah.
I just see green head with ears, and I go, "Oh, that's from Star Wars." So I thought, why is she wearing a Star Wars thing? So, yeah, fair enough. From my perspective, I thought it was cute. Whether it was necessary, I don't know. Did it work? I don't know, but I thought it was very cute that they're actually with knowledge. And I like how she says, "Oh, it's so Galaxy Quest." And I go, "Oh, yeah, very, very clever."
Yeah.
Yes, it was, but in the middle of a serious story, was it necessary? Did it kind of like detract a little bit? I don't know. It's each their own, I
But
think.
but
But
was this a serious story though? That's the thing. So
yeah, I
Doctor
think
Who
so.
has, I think next week's going to be very serious, and
Yeah, I
sometimes
agree.
it has other ones that are more comedy. And there is this unique thing with Doctor Who where they do oddball episodes. It was a term coined in the 80s, and this was definitely an oddball episode. Sometimes they can be horrible, and sometimes they can be great. And I thought this was great.
No, fair enough. Chrissy said it was somewhat respectful. Yes, it definitely was. It's not like the doctor sees the three fans and goes, "Oh my god, we're in Loserville" or something. Wasn't that wasn't the case at all. And now, what are they wearing? Genuine fan obtainable stuff or made for the episode? That's a good question, actually, Mr. Aaron.
I think it was made for the episode. Maybe the Telos t-shirt might be something off of Redbubble. I think they have to be very careful with what they show. All the episodes and stuff like Blu-rays and DVDs seem to be real. There was a Fine Time Dot and Bubble poster on the wall, which was pretty cool, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist. So the sonic screwdriver she held up, that is real, a real toy.
Russell's on the ball on this one. people are going to be now cosplaying this. So you're going to get three people, one male, two females, wearing those outfits, walking through the next Oz Comic Con or Supernova, going, "Look at us! We're actually the nerds from Docky Who, literally from Docky Who." So actually, that's actually very, very funny. And in fact, the actors will now probably be guests at events, signing photographs of themselves as nerds and fans. That's just life imitating art, or art imitating life.
What would be really great if they have their scenes up on the big screen and they're sitting in front of it in the same outfits doing a live commentary. That's a whole level of meta again, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be funny. And then, of course, you speak to those actors and go, "Oh, mate, it's so cool that you guys are big fans of Docky Who." And they go, "We never watched the show. It doesn't interest. We just got paid to be the nerds." So, wouldn't that be like meeting your heroes? Don't do that. Anyway, we move on. We're still stuck with, okay, what's really going on with this, Mr. Aaron, is the Mr. Lux wants to sort of like get some life, give my creation life.
Exactly. And the Miss Lux Imperius, I think the god's name is the god of light. And so he's looking for the biggest source of light that he can get. And when the Doctor and Belinda eventually work out how to escape, I thought that was clever. They jam the cinema frame and they're like, well, it'll either get us out or it'll kill us, kind of thing. And the Doctor gets burnt, and by being burnt, he shows his regeneration energy, and he works out that they can use that energy to give him a real body. Very very Pinocchio, actually, like the cartoon wants to have a real body. Now, I don't know the power of a god or why a god would want a body. Why does
or a starship?
What does a god I was going to say need with a starship, but obviously it's something that he wants, and regeneration energy or light from a Time Lord is going to give it to him. And so the one thing about this, I don't think Mr. Dingaling had much motivation in what he was doing until this point. And this is where the episode focused, because then you could see, oh, okay, this is where it's going to go, kind of thing. If he had planned that from the beginning, it might have been a slightly better episode, because there would have been motivation to what he was doing. But he seemed to just be trapped in the cinema, not being able to get out and playing with everybody. But that takes a more serious twist where he starts to steal the Doctor's regeneration power.
Nothing worse. As Chrissy said, he wanted to be a real boy. And of course, how you turn in from fake to real is you can move from a two-dimensional object into a really funky CG three-dimensional object, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, so when we get into the ugly of the episode, which isn't ugly, it's just looking at all the influences and where popular culture, maybe even echoes and stuff. There is a lot of stuff here from other movies and from different things, and we'll go through this. But I thought this was a really good sequence. If you were a little kid watching this and it went from a cute cartoon to sort of the nightmare fuel looming character that we get towards the end of this sequence, I think it did a really good thing of being a light-hearted episode that became very, very scary and very, very, bizarre and macabre very fast. So I think they packed a lot of this into the episode.
I tend to agree with you, which was very groovy. Now, this particular one, I had to ask you about this. You've got your good and bad linked together, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, it's kind of split between scenes, because something that I thought was a bad was twice they gave away how it would end in the episode. First, he actually says, because your film stock is old and can blow up. And I did think that was a good plot point, because that actually does happen for real. So it's something that could only be relevant in the cinema. So I thought it was written really well, but I thought it was very signposted. And then again, the fans actually say, like they signposted that. But the thing is, if the fans are commenting that it's bad, I can't say it's bad, because they deliberately made it that way. It's part of the plot that was what the fans saw as bad. So I'm stuck between, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because it's already, it's done, it's in it, and they say it's a bad thing. So I can't call it bad because they've already pointed it out as being bad. So it's good, but I can't call it good because it isn't good. So that's why it's half good, half bad.
So fans out there, what you just saw is an example of overanalyzing something to the point where Aaron's just going to be sitting there going, Kim Bruce has gone bad, Kim Bruce has gone bad. It's like, it's good, but it's bad. It's good, but it's bad, but it's good. Yeah, whatever, dude. Mate, talk about, like, I can imagine you in the shop talking about this, and people just going, dude, it's just the TV shows. Oh, goodness gracious me. So there you go. Very, very cool. Guess what, fans? That's the end of the goods. Okay, we're now going to move on to the negatives of the show. So everybody's been falling asleep for the past like 40 minutes. Time to wake up, because we're now going to sink some boots into this episode, and we're going to kick it off with this.
Okay, she got out, and I really did like the opening sequence. And we get out, and she goes, "We moved. The box moved." She actually saw it flying through space and traveling through time. It's never just been TV. I knew it. It's all real. But it's one of those things where she's really smart. She's a nurse. She's, proved herself capable. She's seen that it's bigger on the inside. She knows it's a time machine. So why is she shocked when she comes out and says, "We moved, the box moved"? I just thought that was a bit of a silly thing to do. And I've also put into this, we had the Rock Hudson movie.
Yep.
And it isn't a real movie. If they'd have found a real movie called The Harvest Bringer and it had existed, that would have been awesome. But, it's not a real movie. And the other thing, we had so much I haven't put it up, but it did happen. When the cinema rocks and all the titles fall off and it says The Harbinger, the doctor looks at Belinda and says, "The Harbinger." But he isn't outside. He can't see what happened on the face of the cinema. So that was a bit of a continuity error as well. So I thought, okay, I'll let him get away with it because the doctor's smart. But it was a bit of a mistake in the episode, I thought. They didn't need to do it. The episode was already good enough.
Yeah, I thought that too. I said, heck, you can't see the damn sign. Regarding Belinda, you got to remember, it's her first time she's time traveled. So she's come out, it really is 1952. So yeah, that's a bit of a, obviously the audience is used to all this time travel stuff, but for her, it's the first time she's experienced it. It's like you would be tripping out a little bit too. So, she's used to just being in London and wherever else. So kind of cut a bit of slack on that one. The whole talk about Rock Hudson, I was thinking, where was that all coming from? His history and what happened to him and whatever else. So you're going to have all these fans now looking up, who the hell was Rock Hudson and what was his story? So I'm not too sure if there's something on they've added more on top of that was necessary.
Yeah, again, in that slide, it talks about how he, had HIV, and
yes,
he was,
they did mention that. Yep,
taken the name from the Rock of Jabal, which I didn't actually know.
No, neither did I.
There you go. But for me, that wasn't a bad or it wasn't a good. It just happened in the episode, and we moved on. It didn't come back into the story at all.
Yeah, no, exactly right. An interesting point. But then we move on to this: how Lux came to be, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah. So you've got the pantheon of the gods, and you do this. This is in the middle of the opening as well. So there's a damn lot happening. You see the moon, and then there's a beam of moonlight, and it concentrates on a spoon, and the spoon reflects it into the projection thing, and then blue light comes out of the projection thing, and it like inhabits the cartoon, and then the cartoon comes to life in such a good sequence. It's being nitpicky, but if he's light and he's the light reflected from the moon, I don't know how it can concentrate just on one spoon and stuff like that. The moon glows on the whole of the earth kind of thing. Anyway, I guess this is more of a fairy tale episode than a scientific one. I just thought that bit seemed a bit contrived. It might have even been better if you just seen the like sparkly light float down and go into the projector rather than this whole thing bouncing off the moon and stuff. Didn't really matter. I'm stretching to find bads in this one.
Yeah, no, I disagree with you, dude. I thought it worked quite well. Stocky Who, for crying out loud, all sorts of weird shit happens. Sean's got a question. Does Belinda come across as arrogant to either of you?
She comes across as confident. I guess sometimes it sounds a little bit arrogant. I hadn't really picked up on that myself.
I don't really know, to be frankly honest with you. As I said, I just watched these episodes once, and they go one eyeball and out the other, and then just got to crap about it on these damn shows, these episodes, and then I'm done. That's it. Forgotten. Move on. Move along. But as I said earlier, she's the voice of the audience. So I guess it's good to see that she's actually strong-willed and not prepared to be a bit of a scream queen or a pushover, which is very groovy. So even in this episode, when things are going bad, she's not freaking out or screaming her head off, which I thought was actually kind of cool. Anyway, we're sticking with the bads. Even Lux makes an appearance in the bad books, Mr. Aaron.
Well, it's again to do with his plan and motivation. We're not ever really explained why he sticks the people in the film and traps them there, and they're obviously sentient and alive in there. Could they have done the same thing as the Doctor if they were put through a projector? Could they have stopped the film and got out of it? It isn't explained whether he did something different to the Doctor than he did to the other people in the audience, or what happened. I guess they weren't turned into animation, so it was something different. It was, again, maybe just not quite clear that he just trapped them and why.
I think it was they put that in because people wanted to know what happened to the people in the cinema. Because even the guy across the road said they all just vanished. And I think it's for the audience's point of view, well, they just die, they just evaporate, they just they're hiding under the floorboards, and no, they're actually stuck in film. So it may not actually be necessary for the narrative of the story, but at least there they are, they're stuck here. All right, so at least we know where they're currently located, rather than having a significant aspect to the story. Which I thought was, at least, all right, we've got those guys sorted out. That's all cool. So, yeah, everybody's accounted for, which is very, very groovy. Now, you had a bit of an issue with the animated sequence, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, the issue was there probably wasn't enough of it for me. I would have thought it would have been really cool to have a Scooby-Doo sequence where you have a whole lot of aliens or stuff animated, chasing them around or something like that. You've got this format which is going to be unique to this episode. I don't see them doing it again in a hurry. And just to have some palms in the background and stand there and address them being animated was cool. But if they could have put like a minute of them running around in the animated universe going, this is not cool to be here because of all the crazy stuff that's happening, maybe show some of the things that happen in animation that don't happen in the real world, like, getting hurt, which doesn't have consequences, or falling off a building and getting lumps on your head, that kind of thing, before they escape, might have been cool. And I think the coolest thing would have been to have a run around Scooby-Doo style, being chased by all the Doctor Who aliens. Might have slowed down the episode, might not have been able to afford it, but I just think it would have been a cool thing to spend more time in the animated universe.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree. Just get on with the damn story rather than going, oh, look, we can whack ourselves over the head with a hammer. It's like, oh, we're completely okay. Then it becomes farcical. And then it's like, come on, just get on with it. And if you did that, you'd have to cut short the fan bit, when they go to the fans' room, right? You can't have both, because by then you're on tangents. And that's why, and like the fan room was a tangent. So I felt that, if you're going to do things in the animated room, then you got to get rid of the fan stuff. So I think in the end, it was a bit of a balance. So yes, hitting heads and seeing stars. If you've ever seen the
Roger
Mask,
Rabbit.
the Mask, where he's the wolf and he's whacking himself on the head, all this stuff. And anyway, we move on. So, where am I going with that, Mr. Aaron? Anyways.
Well, the other thing I thought was and it wasn't too bad, but the whole thing, it's a trope in a lot of science fiction, including Doctor Who. Give the bad guy exactly what they want and it destroys them themselves. I did think it was interesting that he said, I want the power of the atom. I don't think he particularly wanted that to blow people up. I think he wanted that just to give his corporeal existence a stronger body, because he was going to the biggest light source. And then when he sees the sun, of course, through the episode, he's like, how do you defeat him? What's the one thing I don't do? Well, something made of light can't go outside because the sun is brighter than it, so it would disappear. And he feeds off the sun to the point where he does disappear, which maybe was a bit of a simplistic ending for me as well. But I don't know. Did that work for you?
Nah, not at all. That was one thing I didn't like about the whole thing. It's like, oh, he's just gone. I was like, well, that was a bit of a massive cop out. I think what happened is they're in the writing phase. They go, how do we fix this? How do we get a really quick ending so we can wrap this thing up? Oh, get him to turn in light. It gets really big. He's gone. Yeah, that was the weakest part. I didn't like that at all.
I would have done something. This would be really cool if they'd somehow worked out how to trap him in a film reel, and they said, well, how do we know that no one will ever play it and let him out again? And they go, well, we're dumping a whole lot of films and they're being turned into landfill, and you see him being thrown in a big hole with Marco Polo, Power of the Daleks, and all that stuff.
Oh, that's actually very, very funny. Christy, even it's the cop out ending. Yeah, it was. I think it was just a quick wrap up, which I think they got boxed in the corner. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And that was that. Now, this part, I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. Is when all the people come out of the cinema. So what did you have to say about this, Mr. Aaron?
This seemed a bit of a cop-out as well, where we didn't really see much about them apart from they were in the film, and then they all just came out and were all fine. I'd have liked the Doctor being a bit more proactive in working out how to get them out of the film and getting them out. Even if it had been just like, quick, before his magic wears off, we've got to project them and they all fall off the cinema screen or something like that. Just give it something proactive. It's almost like an afterthought that the Doctor and Belinda have totally forgotten about these people, and oh wow, they're all back, and they walk out of the cinema.
For me, I would have said, mate, all the whole place is burnt down, all the film has been destroyed, and these guys all cark it. All right. Now, of course, that's going to upset a lot of people, right? Like little Tommy Lee is a dead dude now because his film went up in smoke, and you actually see his film strip burning away. Clearly, that's really pushing the envelope into darkness. And as we saw in the previous episode, they were prepared to kill people on screen. But of course, that would upset a huge portion of the audience, so they had to be saved. And I think I agree with you. If the Dockie's going to save them, if the Doctor's going to do something, you can't just have these guys, like, the whole place is destroyed, but their film is apparently all okay, and they've all walked out like nothing's happened. That was a bit dodgy, and I thought, nah, needed to push the darkness a little bit.
It's the 50s. It's the cinema. They should have all been eaten by the blob.
Exactly right. Come running out like the Colonial Theatre. Ah! Yes, exactly right. So, I mean, they had to do it. I get it. But in another, it doesn't make sense narratively that all the film got burnt, but their film strip didn't. And yeah, that was a bit of a weak part of it. But anyway, the happy ending, you kind of need it. Speaking of which, it continued on, Mr. Aaron, when the credits started rolling.
Yeah, the thing with this is, by breaking the fourth wall a second time when it's already been explained they're fictional, it sets it up that they aren't fictional, so maybe there's something more to them. Maybe they do come back. I didn't think we needed it. I think we'd had enough of the fans in the episode. We didn't need them making a comment about the episode at the end. That maybe was, doing the trick one too many times. I didn't hate the episode because they did it. I just did groan a bit because they kind of went back to it again. So it didn't ruin the episode or anything, but I kind of would have preferred the episode just ended. It is the first episode of Doctor Who ever to rate itself, and it gave itself a 7 out of 10.
Party. Regarding the people coming out of the cinema, Shane has mentioned, who's joined us, Russell T. Davies forgot about them. It was a bit of an oh yeah moment. Yes, either that or someone else on the production team said, what about the people in the cinema? Oh, quick, right in the scene. Yep, they've all walked out there and everybody's happy. So, yeah, very, very cool. Well, guess what, fans? That's the end of the bads. Some of those bads are sort of like stringing a bit of a long bow, but, that's where we're at. Now, we've got the uglies now. The uglies aren't actually ugly. What they are is thoughts, views, opinions, and conspiracy bits and pieces that are going on in Aaron's head, as we saw earlier with his half good, half bad. Completely drove his mind completely troppo. But this is actually some cool stuff. So, Mr. Aaron, we're going to get into the uglies. So, kick it off, son.
Well, it doesn't get much uglier than the fun factoid, does it? It actually does later, so keep an eye on this, Colin, and see if you see anything interesting. But Russell got in contact with me earlier in the week, and he overanalyzes things like I do and sends me all types of stuff that I think is interesting. And he said the story is set in 1952, and they use Chuck Berry's Roll Over Beethoven. A 1956 hit, Rock and Roll, did not really come into prominence till 1954, although the early R&B songs like Turner's Rocket 88 appeared in 52. This would be a mistake if it was playing at a gas station or in the diner. I give it a pass because it was playing in the TARDIS on the TARDIS jukebox. That thing could have been playing Duran Duran from 1981 and it would have been fine because it's a time machine. But I do get, if they really wanted to be 100% accurate, that song wouldn't have been in it.
Yep, fair call. Move on. Here we go.
So there's a lot of popular culture references in this. Mr. Ring-a-Ding Goes to Town. I've been calling Mr. Dingaling, so it's the wrong
Good
thing.
on you. Lucky it's your dingaling and not my dingaling. So
Mr. Dingaling is based, kind of, on Hoppity Goes to Town, a 1941 movie, which really lent a lot of its look and its sort of style to this episode, and I think that's great. There has been a big resurgence of this classic golden age cinema animation that's been used recently in even gaming and comics and things like that. So I really appreciated, right down to the title card, how they were emulating, cartoons from that era. And Russell pointed out that this style is maybe a decade earlier than the 50s, but because they showed that cinema actually had an archive and he went in and dusted off an old film, I think, they still showed Duck Dodgers when they showed Star Wars. So, 50 years later, stuff is still relevant. And if you're an old cinema house, they probably do show stuff that they've just got stored in the cupboard from time to time.
Totally agree. And as Chrissy said, nobody wants to know about ding-a-ling. So there you go. Look, I agree. And I think it's very good. It was a very good stylistic choice that they made Lux Ding-a-ling, whatever his name is, look the way he did. And who knows, it might just start a whole new craze of people wanting to go back and just see old cartoons from way back when, because some of them will be pretty much hitting their century anniversary in the next 10 or 20 years, which is particularly cool, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah.
Very good.
Now, here are some of the influences I noticed. I did think this had to be on purpose. When he became 3D, he sort of 3D mapped onto almost a wireframe, and it was exactly the same sequences where Pinocchio became a real boy. And I've put like the frame next to each other, and you can see where he's got his hand up and slightly looking down, and the other hand is. And I do think it was kind of a Pinocchio story. And there's a little golden book there with Pinocchio, where you've actually got the blue fairy's light coming down and turning the puppet into a real boy. So, I mean, it's not a hard comparison to draw, but there are a lot of visual similarities between Pinocchio and this. And then the other one that's more modern and was also meant to look like a homage to old movies and cartoons is the little clock character, Mrs. I've forgotten the name. I know it too, but from the Loki series. And during that series, she sort of evolves over time and goes from different eras of cartoon, and it does in this. And at one point, it looks like very, very similar to Mr. Ring-a-Ding. So there's some of the influences I noticed. There was a whole lot more through the whole episode, though.
Yeah, as Russell said, Mickey Mouse centenary in a couple of years and Warner Animation in 1930. So, yeah, it makes sense that they would pick that particular style, which is a very, very groovy. So,
and of course, some of the best sort of animations are Twilight Zone type stuff, where real people have been put into animation. And how's this for a fact? In the Twilight Zone movie, the little girl that gets put in the animation is Yardley Smith, and she gets eaten and stuck there. She's Bart Simpson's voice. She literally has been stuck in animation for the rest of her life. So how's that for having a Twilight Zone appearance that has real life consequences? One of the other episodes that I remember that's done quite well like this is an episode of Supernatural where the Winchester brothers actually go into Coolsville, and there's an episode animated with the Scooby Gang, which is one of the better sort of crossovers into animation. And then I watched it with my son Kale, who absolutely didn't like it because he's like, this is just a rip-off of Bendy and the Ink Machine and Cuckpeds and stuff like that. So I do think him knowing that brings a cultural relevance to Doctor Who, just because they are mimicking some of the things that are popular in culture at the moment. And one of those is looking back to that era and taking that very classic design and updating it, but making it relevant for a new generation. So I think they did a great job. The whole look of the episodes, I can't fault anything really.
Cool. Christy made a mention of saying there were many Disney Easter eggs, but they were subtly done. As you said, you always look in the background for various things, which is the kind of thing that fans love to do.
So here's something really interesting. I watched, because I don't have enough time anyway, but I watched Mr. Bug Goes to Town, and there's a sequence in it which is almost a storyboard for what happens in this episode, where Mr. Bug hits a electric socket and he gets charged up with electricity and grows and sort of goes wild. And if you look across the top, that is actually original animation screen caps, and then underneath it is the same sort of corresponding ones from the episode. So I did think that was, I don't know if that was done on purpose, but gee, it's pretty close.
Russell's pointed, just had to correct, it's Nancy Cartwright who was in the Twilight Zone movie, and
Sorry
voice
about
for
that.
Yardley Smith. Yeah, I was thinking Yeah, when you mentioned it, even I was thinking, no, Yardley Smith, but yeah, it makes sense. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Easy mistake done, but it doesn't matter. It's all Simpsons. It's all good stuff. So on the right track. That's why we do these things live, so we can have people like Russell correct our mistakes, which is particularly cool. And speaking of cool, more cool stuff, Mr. Aaron.
Well, this is what I was talking about before for the ending and the trope of give a villain exactly what they want and it kills them. We've seen this before. Probably the best one, the best example is Planet of the Spiders, where the great one, the giant spider, wants the crystal that the Doctor has and tries to get it for 6 episodes till the Doctor decides, oh, okay, you can have it, and it causes a massive feedback loop that kills her. I didn't realize this, but when you look at it, more than half of the Indiana Jones movies have used this trope. Nazis get the Ark, Nazis die. Like Donovan gets the Grail, Donovan dies. Spalko gets the knowledge she wants and explodes her head. So there are a lot of movies and pop culture sort of films and things that use this trope. Has it been used a lot in Doctor Who? Yes, this was a totally different way. I did look for an episode of Adventure Time, which I actually think ended the same way, with some galactic entity sort of drifting off into space, defeated by feeding on its own energy, but I couldn't find it. But if anyone knows what one it is, let me know.
So just for those who are wondering, we've gone past our first hour, which also means that Aaron's son has now turned the internet on in the other room. So if he starts doing a bit of a Max Headroom impersonation, we'll know that his internet is struggling. So we haven't got far to go, fans. Stick with us, because this is some really cool stuff coming up, which is particularly cool, including a bit of Xanadu, Mr. Aaron.
Oh, I know. Like I said, I looked into where they actually filmed because I thought it was such a good set, and it was a pier in Wales. And when it was filmed, they didn't know if they were turning it into Doctor Who. But what I did find interesting, they used the same colour scheme for the night filming as Xanadu, and you can look at the original production designs and then photos from Xanadu, the nightclub in the 80s movie, at the bottom. And even in the lighting, where you look in that top right corner where there's white columns, and one side it's blue light and the other side it's pink light. So they really were thought for. The lighting director in this one gets a gold star out of me just by evoking that sort of almost Hollywood golden era look when you looked at it. Everything was clean and everything was sharp, and the Doctor and Belinda looked great, and it almost was like Xanadu, a mythical place.
So you just wondered if the Doctor and Belinda said, we need some roller skates, and we could have seen how that all worked out. And of course, as is always the case, as Colin has pointed out, the moral of the story is you need to choose wisely. That is very, very true. Now, this turned up in the episode. I switched off immediately. I don't like it when they show things that are coming up next week, Mr. Aaron.
Okay, this is just a little aside. He actually says, I am the last thing you see before you fall into the abyss. And then next week we see an obvious abyss that they descend into. Will he come back at the bottom? I don't know, but I just thought it was interesting they sort of use that. And then I've got the picture again. It ends, but we see it's the fans watching it. So just a little aside, when sometimes they mention something like that, I don't know why he would say that unless it was meant to mean something later. It might just be him being moody, though. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't like it when they in the show says next week this is coming up, because I don't like trailers. I like to just be surprised, and it's sort of like the last thing you want is to watch an episode and go, that was really good. Oh, next week's looks awesome, to the point where you've actually just forgotten what it is you've just watched. So I find that a little bit self-defeating. But we're still going on our uglies, Mr. Aaron.
Oh, I know. And Colin, particularly have a look what's hidden in Easter eggs in this scene. But it's one of the few series now that has featured its own merchandise within the episode. Now, there's a famous deleted scene from Batman Returns where one of the shops in Gotham is a Batman merchandise shop. I mean, if that existed, Dags would have gone and go, I'll take one of everything.
Pretty much.
But it was there, and I think there is some remnants of the scene where, like, one of the biker carnival people crashes into it or sets it on fire, but you don't really see it. There is one shot there of what's inside, and it's giant badges and stickers and all these different things that Batman people would love. And of course, Spaceballs is the classic merchandising. And the other one where they actually mention it. It's one of those things that's hard to criticize if they've stolen an idea from somewhere, if they actually acknowledge that idea in the episode and they go, oh, this is all very Galaxy Quest, but it's very like the scene in that Galaxy Quest where you've got the fans trying to help them out and he goes, okay, listen, it's all real. And they go, we knew it. And that's kind of the thing that happened here where they're like, oh my goodness, it's actually happening, where it's real. And let's face it, if you're a fan of anything, somewhere in the back of your mind, you really wish it was real and you could be part of that universe. That's part of the thing of being a fan of something. Have you ever wished you were in Star Wars on Tatooine picking up some power converters from Toshi Station, Dags?
Bugger that, I'd go to Coruscant instead. Yeah, but we have people coming into your store all the time who believe it's all real, and you just go, absolutely it is. I love this one. Shane has said, we move on too fast to comment. Most people complain about the fact we're on too long. We've already gone longer than the actual episode ran for. So, yeah, we could just drag this right out for hours if you wanted to. Aaron would talk and I would just fall asleep, as was mentioned at the start of the show. But everyone would be having a good time. But with that in mind, we're still not finished. More uglies, Mr. Aaron. Love it.
No, and then it gets self-referenced, and I think it's self-referential in a good way because the writers sort of mock themselves. It's Russell T Davies, and he has the Doctor saying, isn't this a great episode? And he lists all of the episodes that he has written, and all the fans are like, nah, 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 nah. Blink is the best episode, which is a Stephen Moffat episode. And you kind of think that's very meta because you've got Russell T Davies, who's been writing for the show for 7 years now, and you've got like one story written in his run of stories, not by him, that is acknowledged as being better than everything he's written by the fans. So he's actually addressed it like a bit lovingly on screen, which I think is quite a funny and quite a cool thing to do.
Very cool. I like this one from Christy. Just because it's in our heads doesn't mean it's not real, as there's words to live by, isn't it? Eh? So very cool. Now we're almost at the end of our uglies there, Mr. Aaron, but this is very, very cool.
Well, in the end of the uglies, we have our conspiracy theory stuff, and we've got our conspiracy wall. I've dumped all the stuff from last week because it doesn't look like Dr. Zaius is going to turn up, or Cobra Commander, but there is some gods that were mentioned in the pantheon of gods when Harriet Arbinger lists all the deities that we might see, and one of them is the threefold deity of malice and mischief and misery. Now, in other words, Doctor Who fans, fandom, malice and mischief and misery. And we have some people who speculated that maybe that is the gods of Ragnarok, because they were the ones that basically wanted to be entertained and just watched people entertaining them over and over. So wouldn't it be interesting if those three fans weren't a creation of Lux, but they were the gods of Ragnarok, and they had been watching every episode of Doctor Who. There's the three of them. It's the same as Greatest Show in the Galaxy. There's a guy and two women, which was the family. And you never know, with them mentioning all the gods, and especially so specifically the threefold deity, maybe that is something we'll come back to. The other one, what I was thinking of when I saw the next episode trailer, it's called The Well. And what do you get at the bottom of a well, Dags? You get water. And if you get too much water, you get a flood. So maybe Mrs. Flood is related to the Flood, which were the zombie aliens from the waters of Mars. And when we get to the bottom of the well next week, we're going to find zombie aliens controlled by Mrs. Flood. What do you think of that theory? No?
I just like the fact that Mrs. Flood appeared at the end. All that other stuff you just spouted, I like, mate, can anybody else help me? It's messing with my mind. Absolutely, man. What the friggin' hell was all that stuff, dude? It's like, friggin' that's just fandom gobbledygook as far as I'm concerned. It's like, bloody hell, man.
It's Mrs. Flood. Maybe they were just hiding the answer in plain flight. That
I'll tell you what.
She is the mother of the Flood, who are zombie aliens from Mars, from the waters from Mars. Stranger things have happened. We just saw an animated episode.
I'll tell you what, I'm having a Ken Bruce has gone mad episode. Sean said, you're wishing too highly. This is Russell T. Davies. Even I would concede that if the three fans, the three nerds, were something beyond just being three nerds, which they won't be because they're meant to represent real life, that would be kind of cool. But yeah, that's probably pushing the friendship a little bit. Yes, very good. I can't read this, was it? Expect Mrs. Flat as the doctor on Pyrotops is going to wipe them. So, yes, very good. All right. Oh, my God. That's just what a way to finish it off. Well, guess what, fans? That is actually, was it? This season is coming together like a poorly written fan fiction. Oh, that if you don't mind umpire, especially the way Aaron is explaining it. That's the end of all of our our slides. So, which means it's now time to rate this in Rotten Time Lords, which is very cool. And as we know, we rated on this particular, the fresh on the nose rotten. The less rottens there are, the better it is, Mr. Aaron. And believe it or not, fans, guess what? He's marked it as one Time Lord, and that has got to mean it is like the greatest thing ever, Mr. Aaron.
It is. I think the only thing I've rated this highly is the Legend of Ruby Sunday, which crashed and burned the episode later. But I have it on very good authority that next episode is very, very good as well. So anyone who enjoyed this, next episode is a change in tone, but apparently another quality one. But when we get only one master, it's rated something very special. It's given a Greg King Crinoid Fresh on the Rotten Time Lord scale. So this episode is the first one this season that's got a crinoid pod.
Very, very cool. So just in summary, before we get to the end of our actual episode, so it kind of worked for you. It pushed all your buttons, Mr. Aaron?
I did. It could have gone either way. Like I said, in Doctor Who, there's these things called oddball episodes, and it's usually ones you can't really put into a box of something else, like it's not a base under siege or it's not an alien invasion. This one was one of those I couldn't quite tell you, how you would categorize this. It's very meta and self-aware, which is unusual for Doctor Who. Could have been horrible. I was pleasantly surprised. I was actually dreading that this episode would be terrible. So maybe that's why when I saw it and it pushed all the buttons for me, maybe in a couple of months' time it might level out and come down, in my opinion. But at the moment I'm loving it, it's quite sad. This is the lowest ever rated episode of Doctor Who on transmission. It only got like 1.4 million viewers in the UK. Now, don't despair about that, because the way ratings is measured are totally different from what they were even 5 years ago because of all the streaming services. But it is worrying that there are not many people watching Doctor Who on the original view. I mean, repeats used to get higher ratings than this, and this is brand new, a good episode of Doctor Who. So I don't know. That's another discussion about how ratings are handled these days. But it is a bit sad that occasionally something pretty special like this comes out and no one's watching it.
Shane has said breaking the fourth wall was Doctor Who's jumping the shark. Oh, there we go. So there you go. So I guess it's each to their own. From my perspective, as a non-Doctor Who fan, I actually quite enjoyed it. I looked at it from the point of view of saying, from a story perspective, even though it's borrowed concepts from all these other areas, I thought it was actually really well thought out. The idea of a cartoon taking over a cinema and the Doctor and Belinda have got to try and fix the situation. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with meeting the fans, I probably could have done without that, and a bit sickly sweet ending. But the way it was executed, I thought was actually quite good and quite enjoyable. And I thought, yeah, actually, that wasn't all that bad. So I was actually suitably impressed. And I did like the idea of the production design being set in the 50s with the cinema and all the rest of it. So, yeah, that actually kind of worked for me, which is very, very cool. So, very good there, Mr. Aaron.
The other thing is, you wouldn't want an episode like this every single week. But once every 5 or 10 years, I think it's perfectly fine, and it fitted really well into the current era. Probably my favourite of Shooty's run.
Very, very cool. I was going to say, if they do make next week's episode a dark one, I did see a little bit of the next week thing. I thought that's going to be my kind of story, which is going to be very, very cool. That actually brings us to the end of us. Now, before you go, fans, of course, you've got to make sure, if you haven't done so already, to check out Aaron's store. There's more Docky Who stuff in the shop than you know what to do with, including 10,000 Docky Who coffee coasters at the moment. Mr. Aaron, how good is your store going, old son?
We've sold half the CDs in a week. It's been incredible. There's been a run on Big Finish CDs in our shop. It's been fantastic. I was away for a week with Dags. We went on a bit of a road trip, like halfway across Australia, picking up Doctor Who collections, dropping off stuff, meeting up with people. And that has meant there's been a ton of people come in to see us the last week, and it has been full on busy, crazy week, and it's been really fun just getting to catch up with everyone. Apologies to anyone who has come in and just hasn't been able to talk to me because I've just been, busy talking to other people. It is crazy at the moment, but I am loving the shop being busy. I'm loving big Doctor Who collections come in. And we've had lots of other stuff too. So it isn't just a Doctor Who shop, because sometimes, because this is a Doctor Who show, it might seem like that. We have country and Western.
Very, very cool. Cats and dogs living together. It is mass hysteria. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out all the Sci-Fi Zone socials, particularly YouTube. There's more stuff there than you know what to do with. There were a couple of last minute comments that I have seen come through. Greg also made a mention he's not a fan of the fourth wall breaking, but he felt it was an entertaining episode. Russell has a theory about the Solomar. I have no idea what that is. Very, very cool. And I think that, and you wouldn't believe it, we've had a person just join us right at the very end of the episode. So better late than never. At least he's not doing a William who said, okay, I've just joined, I'm leaving now, see you later. So whatever you watched, William, I hope it sucked. All right, so there you go. Very, very cool. Any final words before we sign off for the night, Mr. Aaron, on one of our longest reviews of Docky Who we've had? Any final words?
Just thanks everyone for joining us and supporting the show. As Dag said, find us and support us on our social medias. Otherwise, we'll be back next week to look at another episode of Everyone Loves It, Docky Who.
I can hardly wait. Be still my beating heart. So there you go. All right, fans, party hard, rock on, and we'll see you all next week. Okay, take care. Bye for now.
Have a good night, guys.